Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to my Sims 4 speedrunning video, or welcome to the channel if you are new here. So in today's video I'm going to be building the world of Windenburg, which is the world that we got from the expansion pack of Sims 4 Get Together, and I'm going to be building a gardener's self-sustaining home. So this house ends up having 3 bedrooms and 1.5 bathrooms, and I believe it's built on a 40 by 30 lot. Now, this week, I think it's because spring is approaching, but I've just been really in the mood, really just inspired to sit down and build something for a gardener. Now, recently, I have seen so many different videos of people having like these self-sustaining gardens where they grow all like their own fruit and vegetables and they kind of like live off their own land, and I just absolutely love this idea, and it just got me really inspired. And so I thought, well, we've got so many different packs in The Sims 4 that would work so perfectly along with this. We've got like eco lifestyle, we've got cottage living, like we've got so many different DLCs that kind of go hand in hand with this almost like self-sustaining idea. And so I thought, well, why don't I just sit down and build something like that? And so yeah, that is exactly what I did, and I really hope you guys like it. But before we get too far into the video, I do just want to talk about today's sponsor, which is very fitting for this particular speed build, and that's Midas Merge. So Midas Merge is a new mobile phone game where you can discover and nurture the cutest little creatures in the prettiest gardens ever, all from the comfort from your mobile phone. It's a free-to-play game with no advertisements, which won't disturb your little cozy Midas Merge bubble, and one of the best parts is you can play the game anywhere, offline, at any time. The game focuses on the journey to help King Midas and Queen Lyra as they go on the journey to help restore the Gardens of Gold because of one particular character in the game that covered the land in shadows. Now, it's not about me, which I feel like you probably are aware of if you've been watching me for some time, but I love a little bit of lore, and this game has got it. Throughout gameplay, you find and discover clues of the true story as to why the gardens have such a dark shadow on them, and in the process, you get to create a cute little garden and fill it with all these different creatures which you can level up over time. One of my personal favourite parts of the game is leveling up all these different creatures and just seeing what they're going to become next. You can also name the creatures to make them a little bit more personalised to you. I called one Pancake after Bob Pancake, and a fun little bit of trivia, Midas Merge was actually created by the previous creative director of The Sims 4. It's just such a cute little cozy game, and to me, I find that I can either be playing it for 2 minutes whilst I'm just popping the kettle on, or I could get just sucked in and be playing it for hours. No joke, the other day I played for 2 hours. But the thing is, there's just always so much to do, and there's always new paths to uncover or new ingredients to unlock, and I just love organising my little garden. So if you're looking for a new and slightly addictive cozy game, check out Midas Merge by using the code in the description box down below. A big thank you to Midas Merge for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back into it. So as you can see, I've pretty much built the main shell of the house itself. The actual house, by the way, isn't that big, and to be honest, I actually ended up having more bedrooms than what I initially wanted it to be, because when I was thinking of the Sims that could potentially live in this house, the idea of kind of like a single Sim, or maybe a Sim that's got like a partner or something, and one child kind of came to my mind. But then just the way that the house kind of panned out in like the shell and the structure, there ended up being an extra space for an extra bedroom, and so I kind of made it into what I was personally thinking used to be a bedroom but is now converted into some sort of like home office situation. To be fair, I probably could have just made it into a regular home office, but I don't know, I just find that sometimes home offices are a little bit repetitive and sometimes can be a little bit boring to decorate. And so basically the way that ends up looking in there, we have the desk, the computer desk, and then we have some bookcases, we have some shelves, and then I plonked a double bed in the corner. But then I placed down like old trunks and suitcases and books and all of this pile of clutter, all this stuff basically. So it looks like someone used to sleep in there, but nowadays they're gone, they're not around anymore, and now that room is kind of being used as the home office, but then also kind of like a little bit of a storage space. But in terms of the rest of the house, there also ends up being 2 dining rooms, which I've been doing a lot recently, I must admit, but I really like the idea of having like a little breakfast room and then having like the main, not fancy dining room, but you know, like a little bit more of a formal sitting situation. And coming into this build, one of my main goals was I knew that I needed to use these beautiful laundry day windows. You can see that I've placed them down almost on like the left hand side of the build. I wanted them to be somewhere in this house. To me, it is just the perfect window if your Sim's a gardener, and that ends up being the breakfast room. The lighting in that room, it's just so beautiful. And I tried to make some sort of like custom built-in sofa by using loads of different ottomans and pillows, and I rotated different ottomans around to make them look like pillows. It was a really beautiful room. But you can see that I pretty much already finished the shell of the house already, and now I'm moving over into the first outer building. I'm saying first because there's a greenhouse, which is what I'm currently doing right now, but then I tried to create some sort of like little custom chicken, baby goats and baby sheep shed, because basically the idea that I had was the Sims that live in this house, they're well sustainable. Like, they grow all their own food, they harvest all their own crops, and maybe the overflow stuff that they don't use they might sell, and that's how they make their money, that's how they make a living. But then I really like the idea of one, having chickens, but then I did like the idea of your Sims being able to, you know, have some cows, have some llamas, and your Sims be able to get like milk and wool and stuff. But I just felt like if I would have added in the animal shed that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack, it would have felt a little bit too farm-like for me, and I didn't want to go down that route. And so I thought, well, with the horse ranch expansion pack, we've got baby sheep and we've got baby goats. You can milk the goats and you can shear the sheep. So it's basically like a smaller version of a cow and a llama. And also that way as well, the baby sheep and the baby goats in the horse ranch expansion pack, they do also help with gardening. And so I thought, perfect, I'm going to have so many different planters on this lot. It will just work out handy because there ends up being so many different areas for your Sims to grow fruit and vegetables and herbs and flowers and just loads of different harvestables in the game. There is so much space for it, and I feel like over time it might accumulate a few different weeds here and there, but yeah, baby sheep and baby goats can actually eat them and basically help you with gardening. Only one thing that I'm not a massive fan of with the baby sheep and the baby goats, they don't have a house. Like, they don't have somewhere to go to sleep over night time. So you know what, with, say, the cow or the llama, you can click on the animal shed and tell them to go to bed. Or if you've got a dog or a cat in your game, you can also just click on the little pet bed and ask your dog or your cat to come and lay down. With the baby sheep and the baby goats, they don't really seem to work like that. But something that I have discovered through gameplay, we've got this hay bed from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. It's basically meant to be somewhere where the horses are meant to go to sleep. I've found before in the past that oftentimes if I have a horse and either a baby sheep or a baby goat on my lot, they would more so want to go and lay down on that hay bed. And so basically what I end up doing is I end up making this little like chicken, baby goat, baby sheep shed, and then I place down their hay beds alongside the chicken coop inside of it. That way as well, it's really handy because then you can lock either the front door to the shed, or you can lock the little gates outside of it, and you can kind of contain them in their little corner. So they're not like running around, jumping around on the lot. But I mean, you don't have to lock it, but I feel like sometimes for gameplay, it's just easier to keep all of the animals kind of like condensed into one spot. But either way, besides the point, moving on, as you can see, I pretty much finished building the greenhouse. I was just rambling on about the little animal shed that I made, but outside the greenhouse, I wanted there to be a series of different planters, a little fountain in the wall. I also end up placing down some ivy onto the wall. I do also revisit that area later on in the video, and I add down a dew collector. It's something that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, and the idea around it is it's basically meant to collect like the rainwater, and then your Sims can reuse that water for other things. I'm thinking there is so many different planters on this lot. Your Sims, their water bill, imagine their water bill. It's going to be so much from all the different hose pipes. I'm thinking that's probably a good idea to have a dew collector. That way, when it rains in the world of Windenburg, your Sims can kind of collect all the water and then reuse it for the plants. But you'll see that when I move on later on. But currently over here, I've just placed down some planters. The ones that I've used are from the Cottage Living expansion pack. There does end up being several different planter beds like this, just kind of like dotted around the lot. But I started off with this little corner, kind of like on the back right hand side of the lot. I end up placing down a ton of them in kind of like a square motion, and then I end up placing down almost like a sliver of 3 of them plonked together. And something that you might notice that I've done over here, I've used these, I think they're called sleepers, I might be wrong, but some sort of like fencing to kind of fence off the planters themselves, because I really like these planters, but I knew coming into this build I was going to have so many, and I wanted it to be a little bit nice looking because I feel like sometimes they're quite boring to look at, and if you add some sort of like little fence around them, it just makes them look a little bit more appealing. Like, it just makes them look a little bit better. And so what I decided to do, go through the live edit menu, find these little like stone like logs, if you want to put it that way, and I basically decided to fence in the planters around it. They're from the Journey to Batuu game pack, and this isn't the first time that I've used them, by the way, so you might notice that instead of like completely framing the whole entire like flower bed, I kind of left a little bit of an opening. And the reason for that is because where I've used this before in the past, I know that your Sims, for some reason, even though it's not high at all, but your Sims can't step over it. There seems to be some sort of like weird thing where they like wave their arms up in the air and say that I can't go there. And so whatever I decide to do when I do use them is I leave some sort of opening at the front so your Sims it can get in and out. The rest of the planters work 100%, for some reason they just have a little bit of a faff when you actually want them to step inside of them. But yeah, if you leave a little gap, your Sims can get in and out and grow all of their different oversized crops, which you can see I end up placing down some oversized crops within the planters themselves, which, by the way, I feel like this is quite handy-ish to mention right now. When you download this lot of the gallery, if you do decide to, everything's already pre-planted. To be fair, I do it for a few different reasons. One reason being, I like to playtest absolutely everything in my builds, and especially for this lot. Imagine if I built a gardener's dream home and then your Sims can't even garden because the planters don't work. But I always like to playtest everything, so I end up planting stuff anyway. But then also I like to make sure that they're just looking nice in the screenshots, and you can kind of get an idea of what they're going to look like in your game. And so yeah, if you are wondering, already pre-planted. But of course that means if you want to download this build and you don't like the crops that I placed down in certain areas, 100% you can delete them. Like you can change them. It makes it easier as well. Sometimes people thank me for planting the crops for them instead of them having to do them themselves. I think it might be because oftentimes I'll use a lot of the different kind of like uncommon and rare harvestables to find in the game in the planters, which I don't do like on purpose to make it so the house is like all the fancy kind of like hard to find harvestables. To be honest, the only reason I do it is because the majority of the really rare flowers are kind of like the prettiest ones in the game. So for example, in this garden itself, I end up placing down a ton of different orchids, which the orchids, by the way, aren't a plant. They're not harvestable that your Sims can, find in a random world just in the corner somewhere. The orchids are one of the plants in the game that your Sims, they actually have to do a little bit of grafting to get, like your Sims actually have to work to be able to find this orchid and put it together and actually make flowers from it. I think your Sims have to craft like a strawberry, I think potentially a snapdragon. Like there's loads of different things that you basically have to craft and fertilise with one another to make the orchid. And to be honest, a little bit hard work sometimes. I have not done it in years, but yeah, I end up placing down into this garden, not because they're hard to find or they're hard to come by. I just think they're a really pretty flower. So I end up placing them down in kind of like the greenhouse area. But anyway, as you can see, I basically just finished off the little like farmer field sections. I end up placing down these kind of like trellis looking archways over some of the planters. You'll see me redo it again in some certain areas, but basically I was just thinking for all the different oversized crops that are going to grow, it might be really nice to have some sort of like support beam structure in place for them. And so yeah, I plopped them down over the planters, and if you're wondering, they're still completely usable. I made sure your Sims won't like bump their head or anything, and yeah, your Sims can still interact with the object as normal. But either way, moving on, as you can see, over here I'm just coming in and decorating at some of these live edit planters. Now, in this game, for some reason, we have so many different live edit planters in the live edit menu. Unfortunately, they're not interactable. Like, your Sims can't plant stuff in these. I really wish that they could, because they're just really pretty, but unfortunately your Sims can't plant stuff in them. But I mean, when you're building, you can make it look like they have. And so you'll see in this build, I end up using a ton of different planters in different sections. I kind of used them as a bit of a fence, because this is the thing as well. With this lot, I had no idea how I wanted to like lay it out. All I knew coming into this build, honestly, I knew that I wanted the house to be pretty much in the middle. I knew I wanted the greenhouse to be on the right hand side, and I knew that I wanted a little kind of like patio path area outside the greenhouse, and then also some like little oversized cropped things for your Sims to interact with on that side of the house. This side, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was pretty much figuring it out as I go along, which you'll see because I end up moving some stuff around, but you'll see it all. But I basically knew coming into this build I was going to have so much space for garden planters, and I didn't want to fence them off with a normal fence because it just looks a little bit too almost like structured and routine, and I didn't want that. I wanted this build to feel very like homegrown and almost like organic in a way that your Sims, when they started this garden, maybe it wasn't as big as what it ends up being, because it ends up being absolutely colossal, this gardening space, but maybe when they first started out, maybe they had just kind of like a little tiny planter, and they decided to pop it in one certain area, and then it kind of expanded and it grew, but then over time they wanted to add other stuff, and so I didn't want it to be all very like strategically laid out with loads of different fences and stuff. I didn't want that. I wanted it to feel a little bit more like homemade and just a little bit more organic, and so the way that I decided to kind of like fence off all these different sections is using loads of different live edit planters. But over here, as you can see, I've now started working on this chicken house, goat house, sheep house situation. It ends up changing, I will say, only ever so slightly, but at the minute the way that I've kind of like built it's basically a shed. The way that I built it, I just built kind of like a rectangle, and then I got a roof piece and I made it so it's curved, and then put kind of like a glass roof on it to make it look like one big window. And then on top of it, I've got this current roof. It's kind of like triangular. It's a bit wonky. I don't like it. I ended up changing it. It was just looking really weird, but I didn't know how else to roof this kind of shed thing, because I've never really built anything like this before. I've never really built a separate house for chickens because they don't really need it. They've already got their own little like chickeny house from the chicken coop, but it was more so because I wanted to fence in the baby sheep and the baby goats, which, by the way, you can see that I've plopped them down onto the floor outside of that little shed. I have a feeling they might come with the house if you download it off the gallery, which feel free to delete them. It was more so I placed them down just so I can kind of get an idea how high they are and how actually big they are in comparison to the objects. But I just plonked them down onto the floor in front of it. And also, something that you might be able to blatantly tell, I have just skipped over something, which you might be thinking, hang on, why is there a bridge in that corner? How comes there is an extra pathway? And why did you place down some solar panels but decide to cut it out? Basically, I had a bit of a nightmare because, like I said, coming into this build, I didn't know how I was going to section it off. Like, I didn't know what was going to be in the middle. I just kind of had a rough idea what was going to be around the sides. And so I came in and I spent, I'm not joking, 45 minutes placing down this bridge in the middle of a lot. Basically made it some sort of bridge, so it kind of like connects one area to the other area, goes over a bit of water. I ended up placing down some ducks in there and stuff. But then the way that I initially built the bridge, it was a little bit too far over to this side of the lot. Now, it was more so on the left-hand side rather than the right-hand side. And initially, the way that I built it, that there was just so much driveway space. I didn't want to add a car because, to me, we're on an island. Where you driving to? Do you know what I mean? So I didn't want to have like a massive driveway space, and so I basically just decided to redo the bridge, which you will see me do in just a second. I just kind of filmed this section in a bit of a weird way because normally I will focus on one little aspect of the build, get so the proportions are right, and so I'm 100% with it, and then I'll kind of like go full rain, I'll add in all the landscaping and whatnot. But for this build, I built the bridge, and then I just went a little bit too extra as well with landscaping, which you'll see me delete in a second. By the way, when I delete landscaping, I don't know if it's just me, but I found it really satisfying to watch. Like, watching a load of stuff be deleted in one hit. I just thought it was really satisfying. But I basically just built the bridge, and then I thought, that looks all right. Revisited that little shed area, and then I thought, actually, no, it doesn't look all right. And you can see over here, I've now just come back in and basically thought, I just need to basically shift it over a little bit more to the middle of the lot, which is exactly what I'm doing right now. So, I mean, to be fair, even though I did cut out this massive chunk of footage, I feel like for the most part, you're not really missing anything. The only thing that you don't really see me do is pull out this bridge initially from the live edit menu, which I'll tell you how to get this in just a second. But then other than that, I just plopped down a little fountain, the one more so on the left-hand side, if you're curious. It's from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. It's in the live edit menu. I found it initially when I was doing this like bridge situation, but then also I placed down some solar panels, but other than that, you're just going to see me do it again. But over here, as you can see, the way that I actually built the bridge is a little bit interesting because basically the bridge is on the second floor of the house. Now, what I mean by that is, initially when I built the bridge, I basically just built this really long rectangular room. And then, if you want to basically put down some sort of platform, some sort of like basically flooring area, normally if you place it down, you can make like a little porch setting or something like that. I basically plopped that down onto the room above. Or if you want to, you could just basically build a 2-story rectangle, but then delete the bottom floor. Then once you've built the second floor and you delete the first floor, remove all the walls and then pull it down. That way you don't have to add a foundation to it. I didn't do it just to be awkward. I did it for a reason, because the way The Sims 4 worked, any sort of thing that you want to be close to the floor, whether it be a porch, whether it be a bridge, whether it be, just like a house, if you raise it up so it's got some stairs going towards it, automatically it needs to be placed down onto a foundation. But if you use a room that has been built on the second floor height and then just drag it down, it's a bit of a workaround, if you want to put it that way. And then in terms of the actual bridge thing itself, because you can see that I basically plonked over this kind of like sculpture looking bridge decoration piece, if you want to put it that way. It's basically something that looks like a bridge. It's meant to be somewhere in one of the base game worlds, because fun fact, that is a base game item. But basically, with the live edit menu, I just searched for bridge and then it came up. I think also another way to find it is if you use a little search bar. You see on the left hand bottom portion of the screen where we've got like the little search bar and you can type stuff in. If you type either bridge or landmark, you can find this bridge. I basically just pulled it out, and then using the tool mod, I scaled it to be the same size as that little rectangular platform that I built, and then just plonked it on top of it, and you built a bridge. Something though that I feel like is very important to mention, especially if you want to recreate something like this in your own personal builds, the way that I was able to search for the bridge and have it come up is because I've got the Better Build By mod installed by Twisted Mexi, which I rant and rave about this mod all the time. It is literally the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not joking. It is my lifesaver. I honestly cannot be more thankful for this mod. But basically, the live edit menu and the debug menu, by default, it's a massive mess. Like, it's not organised, everything's in weird places, it's so hard to find objects, and pretty much the Better Build By mod just organises it all for you. And one of my favourite features about the whole entire mod is it actually names them, because by default, every single debug menu item originally is just called debug when you enter the cheat, which at this point in time, I haven't entered the cheat for so long, I actually don't know what it is, but when you initially enter the cheat, everything's just called debug. But with the Better Build By mod, it organises it for you, and it also names them correctly. So you search bridge, and you're going to know about 10-20 different bridges show up. I just decided to use this bridge that I've used before because where I'm familiar with it and where I've used it in previous builds, I know that it sizes up and it sizes down quite nicely, but I also know that your Sims can walk over it, because if you're curious, the bridge is not just for decoration. Like, your Sims can walk over that bridge like they would a normal bridge. But there is a ton of different bridges for you to choose from, but I just decided to use this base game one. But either way, as you can see, around the bridge itself, I came in and I re-landscaped it. Initially, when I did it the first time around, I just went a bit ham with the flowers, and it looked a bit too much. It got to the point where it was too many flowers to actually look nice. It just looked like someone gave a bird a seed packet and the bird flew over the whole entire lot and just dotted all these flowers about. It didn't look at all structured, which, to be fair, I didn't want it to look structured. Like, I didn't want it to look like these Sims purposely placed every single flower in every single situation, but it just looked a little bit too much. And I feel like with all the different colour combinations, it was just, I didn't like it. And so when I came back in and I re-landscaped it, I tried to make it just the same flowers, just simplified and not as to town with landscaping menu. But either way, as you can see, I just finished up I was about to say the front garden then, but it's not even the front garden. There is no front or back garden on this lot. It's just garden with a house in the middle and then also some sort of bridge. But I finished up for the most part the gardening space. I've now just come in and started doing the greenhouse, but you will see me revisit the outside area shortly. I basically just come back in, I add in some like laundry related stuff, I add in like the dew collector, random like little knickknacks, random little bits and bobs basically that I wanted to place into this build because I felt like it was necessary. But for the most part, I'm currently just decorating the greenhouse. It's actually really ironic because there's not much green to house in this greenhouse. This is something that I shortly realised after I finished decorating the greenhouse, but the thing is, I love this greenhouse so much. This is by far my favourite greenhouse that I've ever decorated. I didn't want to come in and just add in some planters just for the sake of it, but basically, in this greenhouse, there only ends up being one planter for your Sims to interact with, and I already pre-planted a tree, so I mean, you might want to delete it, but I thought a tree would be a nice fit to place in here. But then other than that, it's just lots of different decorations to make it look like a greenhouse. It's also a seating area, in all fairness. Your Sims can come in here, they could drink a cup of tea and they can read a book and stuff, but for the most part, it's just decoration, but it looks really pretty, and I really like it. And I mean, in all fairness, to kind of give myself a little bit of lenient towards the fact that I didn't end up placing down really any planters inside of a room that is pretty much meant to be a planter room. We've got so many on the outside. I feel like you probably don't need any extra space. Maybe in the winter time, if you want to, you can pop in here, maybe delete a few different decorations, maybe delete the shelf or something and plop in your planters, say if they're out of season or something, like the harvestables are, meant to be for the fall and it's currently winter or something. So you could definitely just delete some stuff, but I just had so much fun decorating it in here because normally when I decorate greenhouses, it's just planters and maybe like a little side table or something, but in here I want it to be almost like a little bit of like a relaxation room for the Sims in this house. Like I could just imagine coming in here with like a blanket, like a nice like thick knitted jumper on, maybe in like the springtime or something, the weather's starting to warm up and you warm anyway because you're in a greenhouse and these things they get well off. But I'm thinking your Sims are coming in there drinking their coffee, drinking their tea, reading a book, or maybe just having a chit chat. Maybe they're having a little catch up with their mates or something. I just think it looks pretty pretty. But I use a lot of the stuff that we got from both the Blooming Rooms kit and then also the Greenhouse Haven kit in just this one room alone. I placed down several different shelving units or like surface areas. So the one in kind of like the top left corner, that little like brown unit, that is from the latest Crystal Creations stuff pack. I merged in loads of different plants on the inside. Maybe there are certain plants that, I don't know, maybe can't have too much sunlight, so maybe they have to be locked away or something. But then on the other side, I placed down, it looks to be a flower arranging table. Unfortunately, it's not, it's just purely for decoration. But we got it from the Blooming Rooms kit, I believe. And it looks like it's got like a little hat and like little wellies. I really wish we had some singular wellies to place down as clutter in the game. Because for some reason, we don't have any like singular shoes to place down. We've got clumps of shoes from the Dream Home Decorator game pack, but I would love a pair of wellies, a pair of boots, a single pair of shoes, and also a pair of slippers. Which, I mean, I feel like the slippers is probably a bit of a long shot. I feel like the other shoes are a little bit more usable. But to me personally, in my bedroom, I don't know for anyone else who is a slipper wearer, I'm a big slipper wearer. I'm 24/7 wearing, I'm wearing my slippers right now. But I have like a little spot in my room where I place my slippers, but so does my mum. And like growing up, I just thought it was a normal thing to do. But I feel like if you're not a slipper wearer, but sometimes when I decorate Sims bedrooms, I just look at like a certain little area. I'm like, you can place down a pair of slippers there and it'll be perfect. But yeah, either way, I placed down loads of different decorative plants. I placed down loads of different like little plant pots. I even placed down some like bags of soil and random different like fertilizers. Just loads of different random gardening bits and bobs. Basically, I just dotted around the greenhouse. The armchairs that I use in that room, by the way, if you're curious, they are from the Island Living expansion pack. I wanted more like bohemian kind of theme and they were just the best kind of chair that we have for it in the game. But yeah, as you can see, I've basically revisited the garden space and basically coming back in and plonking down everything that I initially forgot to plonk down. It might sound a little bit silly, but basically before I came in and I started filming the greenhouse, I just had a bit of a run around the lot just to see what other things I feel like I could have included to make this house fully sustainable. I'm going off the idea of your Sims, if they don't want to, they never have to pop through a loading screen to visit the shops. Your Sims, they're never going to have to leave the lot if they don't want to, because everything that they need to live, they grow their own. Everything that they would need for water, they collect the water from the dew collector. For the energy for the house, they've got solar panels. Like, I basically run around the lot and wrote myself a little list to basically make sure that I place down these certain objects on the lot somewhere. Now, the things that I wrote down were laundry line and wash tub, which to be honest, that's not necessary, but it just kind of like fits in with the theme of this house. But then also I placed down a bird bath, I placed down the dew collector. I did write down to pop down the rubbish recycler thing that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, but you would have seen I pulled it out. I didn't like it. It was a bit ugly. It's got like rust and dirt and just what I'm imagining old food on, and it wasn't fitting with this house, and so I did decide, just to leave it out. But either way, as you can see, I've now moved on into the inside of the house, and I've just started off by the little front entrance hallway. Something that I wanted to point out, because you've seen me do it a few times, and I keep on forgetting to mention it, because I'm just rambling on about all sorts, but you would have seen it throughout a series of different areas in this build. I keep on placing down the picnic basket, the ones that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack, and you keep on seeing me move objects, loads of different basically harvestables, whether it be basil or strawberries or raspberries or just basically things that your Sims can find in the garden in them. I'm thinking their harvest baskets. So like I already mentioned, kind of like the whole idea of how this build even came about is recently I've just been seeing so many people in videos who seem to be quite self-sustaining. They have some sort of like allotment in their garden, really into gardening. The idea that I have been given is everything that these people are growing, they're able to eat, and everything that they eat, they've probably grown in their garden. And so coming into this build, I kind of wanted to try and get that point across, and so I placed down all these different little picnic baskets and merged in loads of different harvestables that I imagine that your Sims have picked from the different planters. I'm just thinking, the Sims that live in this house, everything that they have eaten, they've grown themselves, and if they haven't grown it, they haven't eaten it. Like, I imagine that these Sims are very much homegrown, organic is the best, that kind of idea. And so, yeah, you would have seen me place down loads of these different harvest baskets, kind of like dotted about all over the place. I also imagine, by the way, that the Sims that live in this house are very into canning. Which, if you're not familiar with what canning is this feature that came with the Cottage Living expansion pack, and basically your Sims can make all these different types of jams, they can make like custard, they can make like mayonnaise, and I'm pretty sure they can make like tomato sauce, and just, you know, stuff like that you would have in some sort of like little jar or a tin, you can make on the hob with the Cottage Living expansion pack. And I feel like this kind of thing, right up this Sims street, like that is their kind of thing to a T. And so I was trying to make some sort of reference to that in the kitchen, in the decorations. I ended up placing down loads of different cans on one of the counters to kind of try and get that idea across. But either way, as you can see in here, I decided to use the Cottage Living counters. It was a no-brainer for me. for this kitchen, I knew coming into it I was definitely going to be using these counters because they're just so perfect for this type of home. Also decided to pair them with this wallpaper that we got from the Home Chef Hustle Stuff pack. It was just beautiful. And then in terms of the oven and the fridge, both of them are from the Cottage Living expansion pack. In terms of the appliances that I placed down into the kitchen, I ended up placing down a microwave on the other wall. I ended up placing down a standing mixer, the one that we got from the Home Chef Hustle Stuff pack. Maybe these Sims are also into baking. I feel like it could make sense, maybe. Well, actually, where'd you get flour from? Do you grow flour? Yeah, you do, don't you? Sweet. Maybe you can just grow that peri grass stuff that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. That kind of looks like wheat, and then pretend that you get flour from it, and then your Sims bake with that kind of flour. But I placed down a standalone mixer, and then also a little kettle in this corner over here. And then you can see that I just did something on the wall, which, not my idea. I need to give credit where credit is due. The other day I was on TikTok and I came across this content creator who's a very good content creator, by the way, but her name is Life and Beth. Basically, she just merged a ton of different mugs into the wall using a curtain rod, and I saw it and I thought that is actually the most genius idea. That is so clever, because basically sometimes you want to have some coffee mugs near the kettle or like tea making station or something, but you either have two options. We have the cluster of mugs that we've got from the Everyday Clutter Kit, or we've got the coffee stand thing that we got from Base Game. Both are alright, but I feel like I've used each of them about a million times each. And so when I saw this creator do it, I just thought, yeah, I need to do that in a build because that is just so clever. And so, yeah, credit where credit is due. That is not my original idea. I just wanted to mention it because I just thought it was the most genius idea ever. But also in this kitchen, I ended up placing down two little food bowls over here. I was personally thinking maybe this household has a cat, but then saying that, I didn't end up adding a litter box for said cat in this build. I'm pretty sure actually at one point I tried to add in, I don't even think I tried, I think I succeeded. I tried to add in a cat scratching post somewhere in the build, and so, I mean, obviously the idea was at the front of my mind, but I just didn't make it so, yeah, the cat could go for a way. But before I upload this build to gallery, I might just pop down a litter box somewhere, just so, you know, if you do want to have a cat and you want to follow along with the idea, then, yeah, they've got somewhere to go to the toilet. But either way, as you can see, I basically just finished up the kitchen room, and now I've moved over into one of my favourite rooms in the whole entire house, and that is a little breakfast nook. So this is the room on the outside that I use, well, actually technically they're also on the inside as well, but the laundry day stuff windows, which I felt like were absolutely essential for this build. This is that room on the outside. In here, coming into it, I knew that I wanted to have some sort of circular table in the middle, because where it is like a square room, I felt like the circular table would have looked better rather than like a triangle or like a little square table. But I was just debating between which one I was going to initially go for. I placed down one that we got from laundry day, and then also one that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. But then I noticed we've got these chairs that we've got from Cats and Dogs, and they pair really nicely with the Laundry Day one. And the chairs themselves have little flowers on them. I thought, well, I've got to go for them ones now. Because, I mean, this is a gardener. I'm assuming they like flowers. So I decided to use the table from Laundry Day and then the chairs from Cats and Dogs. But over here, as you can see, I'm basically trying to make some sort of like little custom built-in sofa unit. Now, the windows themselves are really beautiful, but the only one thing that I'm not a massive fan of is they're only available in the medium wall height, which I feel like the Laundry Day stuff pack came around at a time when we used to often get stuff in the medium wall height, because we've got 3 wall heights in the game, and I feel like when The Sims 4 first came out with Bo's game, they went full pelt with the idea of having 3 different wall heights to build your house on. Nowadays, I feel like most people just build on the medium or the small wall height anyway, and so I feel like a lot of the different windows and doors don't get half as much use as what they were maybe intended to. But especially for me, I am someone that whenever I build a house, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be on the smallest wall height, just because otherwise what are you going to fill the wall space with? Because whenever I decorate any room, I always try to make it so there is something on every single wall is decorated and is cluttered up, just because I'm a big screenshot player, and you might be as well. And if ever you're living in one of my houses that I've built, I don't want you to take a screenshot and there not be stuff on the walls. And so yeah, for that reason, I normally only ever seem to build on the shortest wall height, but then because of that, I don't often get to use these windows. But for this build, I kind of made a bit of an exception. And what I basically did, this is on the shortest wall height, by the way, if you're curious. The way that I did it is initially when I was building this room, I just plonked it onto the medium wall height, popped out the windows, and then went back and reverted back to shortest wall height. But then using the tool mod, I basically highlighted them all and then elevated them down to the ground. That way, they were kind of like matching up with the roof line. Perfect. But then on the inside, there was a floory gap, like there was just a gap of floor, and so on the inside of this room I just basically needed to find something that I could fill it out with, and so I decided to make this little custom sofa. You can see that I've done it on 2 of the little sections. For the other one I just popped in some plants, but the way that I did it, I placed down 2 ottomans. I then also placed down some debug pillows that we've got from high school years. They're like plain bedding pillows. They're the ones that your Sims will use if they ever have like a pillow fight or something. Also placed down some pillows that we got from the modern Luxe Kit. Honestly, that pillow item is becoming one of my most used things recently, because I seem to just be using it in every single build. But I placed down, some pillows from the modern Luxe Kit. I then also placed down 2 ottomans. The brown and white checkered one, that is from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. But then the other one that's kind of like a smaller circle and it kind of looks a little bit fluffy, that one is from the Snow Escape expansion pack. But yeah, basically what I did, using the tool mod, I rotated them in different directions, sized them down, and then just basically moved them into the window, which was kind of like on the sofa, and made it look somewhat like a little seating area. Unfortunately, and it hurts me to say it, but unfortunately it's not usable. Your Sims can't sit there, which I really wish they could. And there was a little small part of me that was hoping that it was going to be able to use them, because I've moved objects, them ottomans before in the past. So I've raised them ottomans up that I've used higher than what your Sims should be able to sit at, and my Sims have used them before. But for this one, I think because I've literally plonked them in the middle of the window, I feel like that's the reason why they're not usable. But I mean, I feel like it still looks nice, especially for like gameplay and maybe screenshots as well. But yeah, either way, as you can see, I've now moved over into the next room, which is the sitting room. So in here, initially I placed down this 3-seater sofa that we got from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack, this 2-seater sofa that we got from the Crystal Creation stuff pack, and then also the fireplace that we got from Cottage Living. All I'm going to say is basically, I had a change of heart. I don't know what was happening when I was filming at this house. I changed my mind about the bridge. I wanted to have a little bit of a layout rejig about, and with this room I came in and I started decorating it in the way that I thought that I wanted to decorate it in. But I kind of went away, did the dining room, did a few other areas of the house, revisited this room, and I realised I don't actually like it as much as what I initially thought I did. It's still a nice room and I like the way that I decorated it, but just for the rest of the house and going along with the rest of the furnishings, I just felt like it was sticking out like a sore thumb. And so I do end up changing basically the rug and then also the sofas in the lounge room. I end up placing down the sofa that we got from the Nook Kit, and then also replacing that love seat with one that we got from, I think it was a Cats and Dogs expansion pack. Looking back, I feel like the main culprit of me not loving that room as what I initially thought I did was probably just the rug. It's a nice rug, but just not for this house. I feel like it just didn't go. I placed it down because it's got flowers on it, and I thought, gardener, loves flowers, makes sense, have a rug that's got flowers on it, but it just felt a little bit too elderly decorated for my liking. And so yeah, I do end up changing around the lounge room, but don't worry, you'll see me do it anyway. But currently, as you can see, I've moved over and I'm currently just coming in and decorating the second dining space. So this is the more like formal dining area. To be honest, if you wanted to, you could definitely change this room up to maybe be like a music room or an activity room or just something other than a second dining space. I just recently have been really liking having more like a breakfast nook for your Sims to have their porridge in, you know, have a morning cup of tea or something. And then I like the idea of, rarely happens in my own personal game, but your Sims sitting down together of an evening and having a dinner together rather than just individual Sims eating at one time. But in here, as you can see, I decided to go for a matching table, chair, and then also a sofa set. The ones that I've used are from the Cats and Dogs expansion pack. Oftentimes, if I've got more space than what I need to for Sims to sit around a table, I'll basically just merge in a little sofa because I really like the idea of that in real life. I really wish we had some table benches in the game because I feel like, and bear in mind, I have absolutely no clue whatsoever about game development, but I feel like we've got the mechanics to have a bench sit at a dining table as well as like dining room chairs, because you think about it, picnic table. You know, we've got Sims 4 loves picnic table, but we've got so many in the game, it would just be the same as that. Or even if we got a table and a bench attached to it, and then we could add our own chairs, like on the other side of it, and maybe on the ends of it, maybe it could work like that. But yeah, I really like doing it recently, and so that's what I decided to do in that little dining room. Also end up placing down a little like china cabinet, and then also some sort of like radio station. But currently over here you can see that I've basically moved back over into the lounge room, and this is where I'm coming in and basically just figuring out what kind of sofas I wanted to use and trying to change them around, because I placed down the one that we got from Cats and Dogs and I love that sofa, it's so beautiful, but I feel like I've used it so many different times. And so where I'd experimented with the pillows in previous areas of this build, I basically just tried to have a play about with the pillows to try and kind of like customise the sofa to some sort of way, but I didn't end up liking it on the Cats and Dogs sofa, and I just basically decided to leave it as it is. But anyway, as you can see, I've now moved over into technically the first bedroom, but I wasn't thinking an actual Sim sleeps in here. So when I was building this house, naturally, I kind of started forming some sort of storyline in my head, and when I was doing the outside, I was thinking, yeah, I could have maybe a single Sim or potentially a couple, they've got a kid, they live here, they love gardening, kids probably homeschool because how would they get to school, they live on an island. That was the idea that I had in my head, but then when it came in, I actually started doing the wallpaper and the flooring, I realised I've got way too many rooms. What am I going to make this extra room into? And I debated at one point making it into like an activity room or something, but then I thought, well, it could be a nice gameplay idea of you're literally in the middle of nowhere, you're out in the sticks, you're quite literally just got water around you. Maybe the Sims that live in this house had another kid, but the kid has kind of like grown up and moved out, and this was their old bedroom, and since then it's kind of been converted into some sort of home office, which I feel like that's kind of realistic anyway, because a lot of the times when people move out, you're not just going to leave like an empty room, like you're going to adjust the room. And say, for example, you might come over to stay, like maybe the kid that lived in this room once upon a time, maybe they still come and visit, maybe like Winterfest or something, and so maybe it's the reason why there is still a bed in this room. But either way, I just tried to decorate it to be a bedroom that is now a home office working space. So in here, I placed down the computer desk that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack, and it pairs really nicely with this new desk chair that we got from the Crystal Creation stuff pack. I then plonked this bed in the corner, the one that I've used is from Horse Ranch, and you would have seen I end up placing down like suitcases, like loads of different clutter, like loads of different piles of just random stuff onto the bed. Would you believe it? My Sims could sleep in it. How? I do not know. Like, I was honest. So when I was playtesting, I just thought, you know, I'm gonna try my luck. Yeah, no, my luck was actually in my favour today when I playtested, because for some reason my Sims that could sleep both sides of the bed, by the way, they could sleep in the bed that has a literal chest of drawers merged into it, loads of different piles of documents, loads of different little trays, and just all this different random stuff. My Sims could sleep in there, but they freak out if I put too many plants on a kitchen counter, or if I move objects something onto a surface, they freak out. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me, like how did that work? But yeah, I mean, if your Sims do come over for Winterfest, don't worry about having to rearrange because, yeah, your Sims can actually sleep there. But either way, as you can see, I finished up the home office. I then just quickly did the bathroom on the upstairs. Very small, the bathroom, but I decided to use the shower and bath combo that we got from the Vampires game pack, and then the sink that we got from Cottage Living, and then just like a base game toilet. But now, as you can see, I've now moved on into one of the actual bedrooms, and this is the kids' bedroom. So in here, I had a bit of a bedding situation in the sense that I couldn't figure out what bed that I wanted to use, if I wanted to use a bunk bed, if I wanted to use one of the normal lower down beds. I couldn't figure it out for the longest time, and I also couldn't figure out the placement of the bed and where it was going to go. Initially, I came in and I placed down the single bed that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack, and it was beautiful. But then I had the idea of, it's a bit squished in here. Can we maybe like potentially place down a bunk bed? That way I can place down things underneath the bunk bed. It kind of like slot to it, and then that way there's more room for activities. But then I went through the bunk beds, and there just wasn't any that was kind of like matching this wallpaper. The wallpaper in this room, by the way, is from the Cottage Living expansion pack. I then found a bunk bed that we got from the Werewolves game pack, and I liked the colour swatch on like the duvet, but I didn't like the actual bunk bed portion of it. Then realised we've got that in single bed version, and so I decided to use the Werewolves single bed in this room. Must admit, I never go for it, but I really just like the bed like duvet cover. It's got some sort of like polka dots and then some sort of like patchwork where maybe there was a hole once upon a time in the bedding and one of the parents had to sew it up or something. It's really sweet. I feel like the only one thing that kind of puts me off this bed is it looks like it's on like some sort of wooden slats, which I do understand is from the Werewolves game pack, and the Werewolves game pack kind of like game design is a little bit more run down, found your sofa in the bin, like that kind of idea. But I don't know, I kind of overlooked it for the kids' room because I really wanted to use that bed for the duvet swatch. But also in there, I did debate placing down a little doll's house that we got from the Horse Ranch expansion pack. It looks like it's meant to be some sort of like farm, but I just went for my all-time favourite, which is the one that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. I do attempt sometimes to try and use a different doll's house, but it's just my favourite, and it looks a little bit more realistic to me. Like some of the doll's houses that we have in the game, whether it be from base game, whether it be from like Horse Ranch or something, they look a little bit too expensive for a kid's room especially. Like, I mean, if I'm building something for like a celebrity's kid or something, yeah, right, but I feel like for a little sim that just lives with their parents in this like gardener's self-sustaining lot, didn't really need a big fat doll's house. And so yeah, I just decided to go from that we got from the Eco Lifestyle expansion pack. But over here, as you can see, I've now moved on into the last room of this house, which is the parents' bedroom. So in here, I decided to go for the bed that we got from the Cottage Living expansion pack. I also decided to place down a little bookcase in here, a little armchair. The armchair is matching the sofa I placed down in the lounge room. I then also end up placing down some curtains to kind of like hide the chest of drawers, just because the chest of drawers ends up being in a bit of a weird bump out area of the room, and yeah, it just looks a little bit weird, and so I end up placing down some curtains. But other than that, I'm going to go around the room, finish it off, and that is pretty much it. So anyway guys, I'm going to end this voiceover right here. As always, you can download this build via the gallery. My gallery ID is JessicapieYT, or if you just search for the hashtag JessicapieYT or just the hashtag Jessicapie. Once again, a big thank you to Midas Merge for sponsoring today's video. And again, you can download it now by checking out the description box down below. If you guys do like my content, then please do subscribe. And hopefully I will see you in my next Sims 4 speedrunning video. Bye guys.